The air smelled like pine sap and rain-soaked earth when Nate and I pulled into the trailhead that Friday evening. The sun hung low, casting golden light through the spruce tips, and I remember thinking how perfect the forest looked, like a promise of peace after a long week. Nate climbed out of the truck and stretched, grinning. "Man, I've been waiting for this all month," he said, slapping the side of his pack. "No phones, no deadlines, just us and the wild." I smiled but said nothing, already watching how he was tossing wrappers from his energy bar into the cab instead of folding them neatly into the trash bag I'd set aside. Little things like that bothered me more than they should have. I'd been camping since I was a kid, raised on leave no trace principles. Pack it in, pack it out, and never disturb what you find. Nate was new to backpacking, enthusiastic but careless, the kind who saw the woods as a playground more than a sanctuary. We hit the trail as the light faded. By the time we reached the lake, the sky had turned deep violet. The surface of the water reflected the last colours of dusk, glass smooth except for the ripples of a loon far out near the reeds. I felt that quiet joy that comes only when you've earned your spot in the wilderness. Boots muddy, sweat cooling, the smell of pine smoke waiting in your imagination. Nate dropped his pack near a ring of stones left by previous campers. "Perfect spot for a fire," he said. "Think we can find some dry wood before dark?" I looked at the ring and frowned. "We should use the established pit near the trail junction. This one's too close to the lake." He shrugged. "It's just a fire, man. It's not like we're burning down the forest." I didn't argue then, just helped move camp uphill to where the rules suggested. But something settled between us. A quiet difference in how we saw the land. For me, this place was alive, fragile. For him, it was a backdrop, beautiful but forgiving. As darkness deepened, we cooked our food over the small flame, and the smell of chili and smoke hung heavy in the cool air. Nate leaned back, tossing another log into the fire, embers spiraling up like tiny fireflies. "You know," he said, "I don't get the whole leave no trace obsession. I mean, the world's huge. One campfire or a couple of stones moved around won't matter." I poked the coals, watching sparks dance. "That's what everyone thinks," I said quietly, "and that's why it does." He chuckled, not unkindly. "You're like a forest priest or something." I smiled thinly, but inside, something in me stirred, a warning that this trip might not stay as peaceful as the evening promised. Morning came soft and blue, the mist curling off the lake like breath from some sleeping animal. I woke early, as I always do in the backcountry, and went to refill our water bottles. The forest was still, except for the drip of dew from the spruce branches and the chatter of a red squirrel somewhere above. When I came back to camp, Nate was crouched by the water's edge, something glinting in his hand. "Check it out," he said, holding up a smooth greenish stone. "Looks like it's got quartz running through it. I might take it home." I felt my jaw tighten. "You're not supposed to take anything out of the park," I said. "Leave it where it lies. That's the whole idea." He rolled the stone between his fingers, amused. "Come on, man. It's a rock, not a sacred relic. Nobody's going to miss it." "It's not about missing it," I said. "It's about respect. Every hiker who takes something thinks it's just one rock, one flower, one feather. But if everyone did that..." He sighed, dropped the stone and stood. "You really take this stuff personally, don't you?" "Yeah," I said simply. "I do." We packed up for a day hike deeper into the ridge trail. The tension hung between us like humidity before a storm. Nate tried to lighten the mood. pointing out odd-shaped trees and teasing me about being a wilderness lawyer. But it fell flat. We hiked mostly in silence. At a rocky overlook, we stopped for lunch. From up there, the forest stretched endless and green, the lake below shining like glass. It should have been one of those quiet, awe-filled moments that make camping worth every blister. But then Nate pulled out a small bag of trail mix, tossed a handful of peanuts toward a chipmunk watching us from a boulder. "Don't," I started, but it was too late. The chipmunk darted forward, stuffing its cheeks, and Nate laughed. "Relax. Look at him. Little guy's living his best life." I stood there, heart pounding harder than I expected. "You're teaching it to beg, Nate. It forgets how to find its own food. It can starve when people aren't around." He looked at me, incredulous. "Are you serious right now? You think one peanut's gonna kill a chipmunk?" The forest felt heavier then, the stillness sharper. I could smell the pine resin warming in the sun, hear the faint hum of insects. But between us, there was only that growing gulf, his easy laughter against my quiet fury. "I just don't see what harm it does," he said finally. I stared at the little animal as it scurried off with its cheeks full. "That's exactly the problem," I murmured. We hiked back in silence. Every step on the dusty trail sounded louder than it should have, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something, maybe our friendship, maybe the fragile peace of that wild place, had just shifted, almost imperceptibly, toward breaking. By the time we made it back to camp, the sun was already leaning west, spilling gold over the trees. Nate seemed lighter, humming to himself as he gathered wood. I tried to let the day go, but my thoughts kept circling back to that chipmunk. Small thing, sure, but it symbolized something bigger. He saw the woods as entertainment. I saw it as a living thing that deserved quiet reverence. He called out, "Hey, I'm going to cook tonight. You just sit and enjoy the view for once." That almost made me smile. Maybe we could reset. But then I noticed what he was doing, breaking long branches off a standing dead pine. "Hold on," I said, standing. "Don't snap those off. We should use downed wood." He frowned. "It's dead anyway. What difference does it make?" "It still matters," I said. "Standing dead wood shelters insects, birds, sometimes even bats. It's part of the ecosystem." He dropped the branch with a sigh, shoulders tensing. "You know, it's exhausting camping with you sometimes. Every move I make, you've got a rule about it." I felt the sting of that, but I held my ground. "They're not my rules, Nate. They're about keeping this place the way it is." He turned back toward the fire ring, muttering, "Feels like you care more about the forest than people." The words hit harder than I expected. Maybe he was right. Or maybe I was just too tired to argue anymore. I busied myself setting up the bear hang, making sure our food and scented items were tied up high and away from camp. Nate grumbled something about paranoia, but helped lift the rope. By nightfall, the fire crackled soft and low. The air smelled of smoke and pine tar. The lake was a black mirror, stars trembling on its surface. For a while, the quiet mended things between us. We shared coffee from my battered tin mug, passing it back and forth like we used to. Then, Nate pulled out a small knife and a chunk of wood. "You know what? I'm carving a walking stick, souvenir of this trip." "Don't," I said automatically. "Cutting live wood scars the trees." He laughed, that easy, careless laugh again. "I'm not cutting a tree, man. I'm trimming this stick I found." But I saw the glint of green under the bark. Fresh sap, still wet. "That branch isn't dead," I said sharply. He paused, knife hovering. You've got to be kidding me. I'm not. His smile faded. You know what? Forget it. He tossed the stick into the fire, where it hissed and popped as the sap boiled inside. Happy now? The smell of burning pine filled the air, sharp and sour. I didn't answer. The flames flickered between us, and I realized it wasn't just a stick that had caught fire. It was the thin patience holding our friendship together. The next morning dawned grey and heavy, the air thick with the scent of damp earth. Clouds had rolled in overnight, and the lake was a dull sheet of silver beneath the overcast sky. I woke to the soft patter of drizzle on the tent, and the faint crackle of something outside. When I crawled out, rubbing the sleep from my eyes, I saw Nate crouched by the fire pit, coaxing flames from a small blaze he'd clearly started earlier. Morning, he said casually. Thought I'd get breakfast going. I blinked, still waking up. You lit a fire? Now? It's drizzling and we're breaking camp in an hour. He shrugged. Yeah, but I wanted coffee. You're always saying don't waste matches, don't move rocks, don't take sticks. Figured I'd do something my way. I stepped closer and froze. The firing wasn't ours. He'd moved down, closer to the lake, maybe 10 yards from shore. Around it, blackened stones marked where he'd scraped away moss and dirt. Nate, I said slowly, my voice tighter than I meant. This isn't the established site. You can't build a new fire pit this close to the water. He straightened, jaw set. Oh, come on. It's one morning fire. The ground will recover. That moss you scraped off. It took decades to grow. You're scarring the shoreline. He turned toward me, eyes narrowing. You always talk like you own the woods. You don't. You act like nature's some fragile thing that needs guarding from everyone else. But guess what? It's been here long before us. It'll be here long after. The drizzle deepened into rain. Steam rose from the fire as it hissed and sputtered. That's not the point, I said, voice rising despite myself. It's about minimizing damage, about respect. He jabbed a stick into the flames. Respect doesn't mean walking on eggshells. It means being part of it, living in it, taking what you need. That's not living with nature, I shot back. That's using it. He glared at me then, and for a long moment we just stood there, rain dripping from our hats, the little fire snapping between us. You think I don't care, he said quietly. But maybe you care so much, you've forgotten how to enjoy it. The words sank deep, half true, half cruel. I wanted to answer, but something in his tone stopped me. He grabbed his mug from a rock and walked off down the trail, muttering, I'll be back when the sermon's over. I stared at the smouldering pit, the wet ash turning grey in the rain. The sight made my stomach twist. I scooped water from the lake and doused it, watching smoke curl up like a sigh. The rain fell harder then, as if the forest itself had joined in washing away the evidence, but not the memory. For the first time since we'd set out, I wondered if we'd even make it through the weekend together. Nate came back late in the afternoon, soaked to the bone, but calmer, his shoulders slumped under the weight of his wet jacket. The rain had eased into a mist by then, and the forest had that hushed, sacred feel that comes after a storm. I was sitting on a log near the trail, patching a tear in my tarp, when he stopped a few feet away. Fire's out, huh? He said quietly. Yeah, I replied, not looking up. I buried the ashes and covered the ground, tried to make it right. He nodded, scuffing the dirt with his boot. I figured you would. For a while, neither of us spoke. The only sounds were the slow drip of water from the trees and the distant call of a raven echoing through the mist. Then he said, You know, I didn't come out here to fight. Neither did I said. I can't stand seeing a place like this get hurt, even in small ways. He crouched down across from me. I get that, but sometimes it feels like you care more about the rules than the reasons behind them. You treat nature like glass, and I think maybe That's why you can't relax in it. That hit deeper than I wanted to admit. I'd spent years learning the right way to camp, to leave no trace, to move quietly through wild places. But maybe I'd let the principles become armor, something to protect me from the idea that humans, by existing at all, always leave a mark. I took a long breath. Maybe you're right, I said finally. But I'd rather leave a soft mark than a scar. He cracked a small smile, the kind that said he wasn't ready to concede, but appreciated the truce. Fair enough. We spent the evening packing up in silence, the forest slowly breathing again around us. The smell of wet pine, the crunch of soaked leaves. It all felt heavier somehow, but not hostile, just real. Before dark, we sat by the water one last time. The clouds broke just enough to show a few stars reflected in the lake. Nate reached into his pocket and pulled out something small. For a moment, I thought he'd kept the stone from that morning. But instead, he opened his palm to show a tiny pine cone, brown and weathered. "Found it on the trail," he said. "Figured I'd take it." I raised an eyebrow and he grinned. "Relax, I'm putting it back." He tossed it gently into the moss beside us. And we both laughed, the sound cutting through the damp air like sunlight. When we finally turned in for the night, the forest felt quieter. Not because it had changed, but because we had. I lay there listening to the water lap against the shore, and thought about how friendship, like wilderness, survives only when tended with care. Leave no trace, yes, but maybe also leave room. Room for mistakes, for forgiveness, and for the wild, untamed space between two ways of seeing the world.